Yes, indeed.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me center my face here. So I've inputted another couple days um, of statistics, and it's starting to come together. There's a significant thing that excites me about this situation, and there's a couple caveats that I want to work through. So first of all, I've decided to stop at 10 days after a big event. So 2 more days to finalize the top chart. So end of day will be ninth day today, and then one more day after that, which will put us at Wednesday, the 17th of October. And then obviously about 10 more days to compile the rest of the numbers so that we have 10 series. And that should put us, oh boy, in the neighborhood of, I don't even know here, we got 60. Then we're going to have 2 more days. So probably about 80 plus stocks that we're going to have reviewed, which is a decent enough number to get some general ideas. So you can see that essentially after this big move, and this is quite an impressive statistic, after these stocks all had sort of they were the biggest winners of the days, on average, each day following, they continued to have a profit. So you can see 0.43%, 0.2%, 0.92%, 0.03%, 1.8%. These numbers are a little skewy because there's not as much data, but still 3.38%, 2.3, and 0.69. So this is a good sign, and this is something I was hoping for when I got into this. Just basically, do they continue to grow afterwards? The work I was working on the other day that I posted in my last video, I've added 2 days to that just to sort of consolidate it. It did turn out better because we did have one more stock, this guy here, which was the weed stock that we would have sold at our 5%. So this number is pushed up to $845, which is a 36% return on the year, which is pretty awesome. And then if you sold everything, you're looking at $1,100, which is a over 50% return on the year, just under 1% overall. And then the same, this was again if I stop lost at 5%, we're looking at $2,000 profit, and a 2, 4, 6, and 2 win loss so far. And then if you sell off today, a $1,700 profit. So clearly the three stocks that are still active are down, up a little bit, and down. So overall, like, these are beautiful numbers. Obviously, not enough data on these latter dates. We're only looking at about 12 stocks. So clearly what I'm going to end up doing is running a scenario like this, but using the entire list of stocks once we have 10 days on all 10 stocks, sort of running some scenarios through here and coming up with some actual sort of back testing data. And then the last thing I did, which I'm pretty excited about, was I just took a basic sort of graph and I charted the daily results from the stocks that I'm working on, as well as the daily results from the market, and then sort of compared both of them side by side. So you can see here the blue is the stocks, which overall up over 9% over this period of time. And then the red being the TSX overall, which is actually down about 3% over the same amount of time. So that's a 12% difference between the selected stocks and the overall market, which is incredibly significant. And again, this is a 10-day period of time, so it's not like it's a 6-month chart or anything. So I'm optimistically excited, and I think I'm going to go over right now. I think this will be my last video in here until I actually have all the data compiled, because if I don't, then each day is just going to sort of be a repetition of the same thing. But I created a Word document that I'll show you now that is just going to sort of go over what kind of number crunching I'm going to do within here, because obviously I can't purchase every single one of these stocks every single day, because that would be, if I'm swing trading and I'm holding on to them for 3 days to 2 or 3 weeks even, that could be dozens of stocks that I would be holding simultaneously, and that's just too much to keep track of. So I need a way to sort of filter even more optimistically as opposed to just blindly, purchasing at the close of the day after the big move. Just every single stock, right? So what I need to do is find some way to filter them to be even more efficient, to be even more precise. So here's the document I've created, and I'll just go through it here. So I'm going to have 10 business days of data for all these stocks, and I need to weed out the stocks for optimization. So a couple caveats that I'd like to look at specifically once I get the data compiled would be winning day after a big day. What does this mean? So there's a handful of stocks, of course, here, 15 out of the 29, that actually won the day after the big move. So I'd like to sort of separate these stocks, like for instance, Maple Leaf Foods. It had after a big winning day of 6%, it won 0.25% the next day. So what did it look like for the next week or two after that, as you continue to follow it down the road? So would this be, as of the 8th day after, it closed at 31.90 and the big move was 32.51. So over 8 days it's actually down. But let's continue to look, Canadian Pacific, had a big move of another 2% after making almost 3% on October the 4th. Well, let's follow this through and see how it's doing. So perhaps I could filter out stocks that close up the day after. For example, I don't know this to be true, but it's something I'd like to sort of break down and look through all these stocks that had additional winning days after their big wins. The second point is going to be dollar amounts. So I'd like to filter my results by, stocks under $10, stocks $10 to $20, 20 to 50, and 50 plus, to see if there's any sort of increased profitability or increased percentage of times when stocks do well based on their dollar value. There might be a caveat where I could ignore stocks under $10, for example, or ignore stocks over $100, or something in that range that would help me to, again, narrow down the range of stocks that I'm going to be looking at. Another thing I'm going to be compiling would be percentage gained comparisons. So what about just stocks that made over 10% on that first day? Or conversely, stocks that made less than 5% in one day. So looking at that example, I could filter out, okay, this guy went 20%. So on 792, let's bring it all the way through, and we're at 818. So we're up, even though it made 20% on that day, we're up about 30 cents almost from that move, the 805 move, after obviously at end of the day today. So looking at another big stock, there's not that many that do 10%, but APH did 10%, so 1970. And don't have enough data, but we're a little bit up on that one. And that one closed. This one did over 10%. And this one, again, not a lot of data. So there's not too many that have gone over 10%. I'm sort of highlighting them here. But maybe I'll move that to, 7+% or 8+%, just to see if there's any way that I could filter out maybe some stocks if they have too high of a first day. Maybe that's a bad thing. Or conversely, it could be an extra good thing that I'm only hunting for stocks that made, above 6% or above 8%. Again, I don't know the answers to these questions. These are questions I'm going to be posing and going through. And then the second thing to consider, or the final thing, I guess, I'm going to be considering a lot, is going to be the second day close. So what this means is what percentage of their profits after the first day did they give back? And is that any consideration sort of moving forward? So I could break this down to say, okay, did they give back over half of their profits? So in a couple examples, this one, 21%, only lost 1% the next day, 8%, 0.7. So none of these are really good candidates. That could be a candidate. It gave back almost half of its profits the day before. And then we're going to continue. We'll filter just for this type of stock and see if it's more or less successful than the average, or more or less successful than other stocks that didn't give that much back. So it's just, again, these are 3 or 4 different ways I'm going to use this data to kind of try and hone in and really organize my thoughts so I can know, okay, I'm only going to be looking at stocks that are, $20 to $22, or sorry, $20 to $50 that gave back less than half of their big push up the next day, but didn't go in the green the next day. There's all sorts of filters. So hopefully what I can get it down to is like one or two, 10 out of 10 green light, really liking the stock each day. One or two or maybe three at the most. And then obviously we're going to be riding them for, anywhere from 2 days to a couple of weeks, and hopefully get more winners and losers. And that's the whole idea. So anyway, I think that's all I have for you today. I'll be back, maybe not for a couple of weeks until this is completely compiled. But again, open to feedback, ideas, suggestions. It's certainly very interesting, and this is the most deep of a dive I've gone into. I'm curious about a few things, if this number is going to even out, because obviously we only have about 20 stocks out of what'll end up being about 80. So this ratio of 23% on day 4 seems really low. And obviously these numbers are going to balance out, because I don't think we'll see a 3% growth on day 6. I feel like this number will go down, and maybe some of these numbers will balance out a little bit. So I will be certainly curious to see the final results, and I hope you are too. And as always, thank you for watching. See ya.
Yes, indeed.